Welcome to your Daily 5 for Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. You may have seen something in the news about the DNA testing company 23andMe laying off about 40% of its workforce, which is just the latest in a series of setbacks for a company that, like other companies of its type, had this kind of brief year or two of popularity where you seem to see that name everywhere and people were just using it, and it was, almost a fad of some kind. I never really understood it, but I certainly can't deny it was all over the place for a little while. Well, since then, the company has suffered a data breach which exposed, I don't even know how many millions of their customers' records. I'm going to assume almost all, if not all of them. The entire board of the company apparently resigned overnight a few months back because they disagreed with the CEO's directive that they're going to take the company public. And now with the layoff of this many people from their workforce, it certainly doesn't look like the company is doing very well. I doubt it will just fold outright, but it is likely going to be acquired, if nothing else, because certainly that information they have is valuable to somebody. But it does illustrate a couple of things, one of which I've talked about numerous times, and another which I've probably talked about here and there, but I think it's these types of stories do highlight why it is important to focus on this stuff. One, that when that data breach happened, it should have been, even when 23andMe was at its apex of popularity, I remember very clearly a number of people saying you should not use these companies. They are not ensuring that your data is secure. Not only obviously in terms of resisting breaches, which obviously they weren't, but also I remember that there was a lot of attention on the terms and service of 23andMe's kind of the thing that you would agree to, the TOS. And there were a number of people who were saying this is not good. They are not handling this information properly. You should not use these companies. And so that's the one side is, and I've said some variation on this many times, be really careful with what companies you trust with what information. You'd better be sure that a company that you're going to turn over any type of personal information that you would not want to be just given to people that you don't trust in general, you better be really sure these companies are guaranteeing as much as they can that they're going to keep that information secure. If they can't, you might want to think twice. But it also highlights the fact that when these breaches happen, nothing is really being done about them. So not only is there the problem where people are too trusting of these companies, but when that trust is violated, and let's assume that 23andMe had done everything right and there was still a breach. Nothing happens with these companies anymore. My wife just joked the other day, she got a new debit card from her bank. And she joked, this is the first one I've actually legitimately gotten because the other one expired. The rest of them have always been because somebody got my number. And that should not be something that is joked about. We're very fortunate that, at least in this country, there are consumer protections where if your number is compromised and you report it quickly enough and they can stop it, you will get at least some of that money back. But there's also circumstances now where that's not happening anymore, like with some digital payment options, where if something's compromised and you use the wrong service, you lose the money. So these types of breaches should put a terror into companies that makes it that they do almost everything that's humanly possible to stop them. And the reality is that doesn't exist today. A company doesn't have to worry about anything. If there's a data breach, they'll put out an apology. They might suffer. Look, LastPass is still in business. They survived that when they should have been gone. People at the highest level should have been in prison. They should be so afraid of suffering not only financial, but actual legal penalties that they won't allow these things to happen. But that's not what we've got. And so a company like 23andMe, which you are watching implode in real time, basically, that company is going to get acquired. That information is going to go to somebody, and the people behind it, the ones who are still there that haven't resigned or quit or whatever, they're going to get away with having the information taken in a breach, and nothing happened. Nothing happened outside of them having to put out a PR statement that somebody in their PR office who's being paid to write it writes in the most bland, generic terms saying, we're so sorry, we'll make sure this never happens again, until, of course, it does happen again, and everybody's just going to go on their way. They'll maybe lose some money because the company is tanking, but other than that, they'll suffer nothing for it. And I know I've said variations of this many times before, but I really hope that something like this makes not only people think about, again, what companies they trust with their information, because sadly not enough people do, but maybe stuff like this is going to get more attention and more action done to make sure that when data breaches happen, they mean something, because right now, they don't. Later.